counting on you.
See you on the other side.
Freeze! Come on, man.
My name is Lance Batriel, and I'm a convicted rapist. I deeply regret my crimes, but that don't mean a thing in prison. As a sex offender, you're a marked man to be punched, kicked, and spat on. You might think the abuse forced me to try and bust out, but you'd be wrong. Deep inside, I knew prison was the best place for me. It stopped me reoffending while I tried to become a better person.
The Indiana State Prison is definitely one of the toughest prisons in the United States. There's over 2,000 inmates that are closely confined every day, and 3 out of 4 of them are in there for murder. There is a true hierarchy, and at the very bottom are the sex offenders that are in danger for their lives every day. Very dangerous, very dark.
One day, I was coming out of the commissary. A dude attacked, tried to rob me. I knew I had to fight back to prove I wasn't easy meat. But he cut me before I could get away. I needed some help treating the wound before a guard saw any blood.
Got no problem here.
That's how I got to know Mark Boer.
Who cut you? It don't matter.
Come on, sit down.
Mark was impressed. Not telling on the guy who attacked me. He saw that as worthy of respect. We became friends. Ended up sharing a cell together. One of our favorite pastimes was studying the prison breaks in TV shows.
Did you take somebody down to get out of here?
No way, man. It's not me.
There's got to be a smarter way. I just need somebody to help me find it, man.
But to me, escape was nothing more than a lot of what if. I got myself a job in maintenance. So did Mark.
Hey, Lance. I want you to meet Charlie.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey, brother.
Some of the guys were finally starting to accept me. It just wasn't in my heart to escape. Then one day, I got a letter from Ma. Dad was seriously ill. He was in hospital with a 50-50 chance of survival. All I wanted was to visit him, ask for his forgiveness, and vow to him I'd be the son I should have been years ago.
Yeah, I'm proud of you, son.
The Indiana State Prison is a maximum security prison. There isn't any compassionate leave. That's the reality of it. That's where you're stuck until the end of your sentence.
I realized if I was going to see my father before he died, I had to escape. That night, I told Mark I was ready to break out. For real.
Listen, man. I'm leaving. I'm busting out of here.
Okay.
You with me?
Yeah, man, I'm with you.
Because of our jobs, we had access to tools. We could get around the prison real easy, and we were trusted. But our escape options still seemed limited.
It is nearly impossible to get out of the Indiana State Prison. Most of the prison was covered by CCTV cameras. There's various K9 teams. You have a wall that's nearly 30 feet high. It has razor wire on top of that. And around the perimeter of that wall, there's about 10 towers. An inmate is climbing over the wall. Do you shoot him? Of course you shoot him.
We realized the answer wasn't to go over the walls, but to find a way under them. We'd been fixing things in the tunnels beneath the prison for years, always watched by a guard.
I was what they called a tunnel rat. We patrolled all the underground systems of the facility. The tunnel system is huge. It goes on for miles, it wraps around, it goes everywhere.
We knew one of these tunnels connected to a storm drain leading out of the prison and all the way to 10th Street in the city. How? Because back in the 80s, it was big news when some guys knocked a hole in the drain, crawled in, and escaped.
All right, guys, time to wrap it up. Let's go.
I figured our only hope was to pull the same trick again. Except now there was extra security.
There was a lot of gates and bars, and we just didn't think it was possible that there would be another escape.
We had to find a way to cut through all of them security gates, undetected. My idea was to get down there at night.
If an inmate did find a way down in the tunnel system at night, they pretty much had free reign to do whatever they wanted because there was no security staff there.
Problem was, at night, we were locked in our cell house. So I somehow had to find a route from there into the tunnels. I started thinking about the maintenance passage between our cells, a space they called the midway. I'd done a lot of repairs in the midway, so I knew from there we could get into the basement below, which was at the same level as the tunnel system. I put it all together and came up with a plan.
Okay, Mark, come on over here.
The start point was cell house, where Mark and I lived.
We're gonna go down through the midway into the basement under our cell house. From there, we're gonna dig into the steam tunnel under D cell house.
Digging our own tunnel from cell house to D cell house gave us access to the entire prison tunnel system. But after that, there was still a whole lot more work to do.
We're gonna cut through the security gate under A cell house, through the 2 gates under F dorm, and the cage around the storm drain. We exit the manhole cover on 10th Street.
Can we do this?
Gotta try.
Suddenly, the idea of escaping wasn't just talk, it was real. But crawling nearly half a mile through a 2-foot-wide storm drain would be hell on earth. If we got stuck, we'd die. Like trapped rats. Mark and I had been talking about escaping under the prison walls for weeks. But to get into the tunnels from cell house, we needed access to the maintenance passage between our cells, known as the midway. From there, we could get into the basement below and dig our way into the tunnels. But only a supervisor could unlock the midway door. What we needed was his key. So I used glue from the workshop and baby powder from the commissary to make some silly putty. The success of our plan depended on a simple mix of 2 household ingredients. Next time the guards took us into the midway, Mark hid some tools. Then called over to the supervisor.
Hey, boss, come here for a second. You gotta see this.
The midway was real tight. So from experience, I knew he would have to take off his utility belt before he walked over. The moment he was back there, I used the silly putty to make an imprint of the key. I used wax to create an outline on a piece of scrap from the metal shop. I sanded it into shape. It was risky work. It took 2 days.
Our key to freedom.
Next, we needed to test the key.
We go for a walk.
The only problem was the guard's office. If he looked across, he could see the midway door. We needed a distraction.
Hey, boss, how you doing, eh?
That's why Mark brought Charlie in on the plan.
How about that game last night?
Charlie Smith could take any kind of story, turn that ass backwards, and make a joke out of it.
Banged out, what, 15, 16?
I think he was just natural.
You know, I remember back in the day...
Everything was going to plan,
15 or 16, but 9...
except the key.
Wow, we gotta be happy with that, don't you think? I remember that year. That was...
It wouldn't go in.
9 in a row for this team, the way they're playing, I think is pretty good.
I saw the guards start coming out the office.
The way they're playing, I think is pretty good.
Any second he'd see me.
You know, I think 6 years ago, you know, the short guy with the mustache and the big gun, whatever his name is.
Suddenly, the key was in, and the door opened.
Charlie, what you doing, man? Let's go.
I'll catch you later, boss, all right?
Now we had a key. We could get into the basement, but facing us was a much bigger obstacle. To dig our way into the steam tunnel, we first had to smash through the basement's solid brick walls. We'd made us a homemade sledgehammer back at the workshop. I was worried they'd hear me busting the wall and call an emergency count. Nobody seemed to notice. We were lucky. The ground turned out sandy and soft. But it was going to be a long, hard job. The routine went like this.
This place.
We were all present for the 7 p.m. count. After this, Mark or I would slip into the midway,
Hey, boss.
with Charlie's help, of course.
I hear your mother makes a mean apple pie. Unbelievable apple pie. Is that true?
At the 9 p.m. count, we were locked in our cells for the night. So if it was Mark's turn, I made up a dummy. And tried to act normal.
During a count, you're supposed to be 100% certain that that inmate is in fact in his cell. But it's fairly easy to get complacent. You see same inmates from the same cells every day.
Lasagna or spaghetti?
Whoever was digging came up after 4 a.m. when our cells were open.
That on the menu downstairs, huh?
They had to be back in the cell at the latest by 5 a.m. when there was another count. After a week of digging, we'd reached the wall of the steam tunnel. On the other side of these bricks was a route to the storm drain. The following night, Mark went down to bust through. It was awesome. We were about to complete stage 1 of the escape. He'd been gone about 20 minutes when my worst fear became reality. I just about had a heart attack. We had to be out of our beds for an emergency count, so a dummy wouldn't cut it. I was thinking maybe they've heard Mark smashing the wall. We're busted. The guards were 2 doors away, and Mark was still in the basement. There was only one thing I could think to do. I hung up the sheet we'd sit behind while we were on the John.
He likes his privacy.
I pretended like Mark was taking care of business.
Many inmates would put up a sheet or a blanket when they were on the toilet. It's human nature to want to do that. Technically, it was against regulations. But there's kind of a gray area. You don't really want to see them on the toilet.
I couldn't believe it when the guards checked us off. It turns out the whole thing was just a drill. That night, Mark broke into the steam tunnel. We were on our way. Now, we needed something to cut through the security gates in the next stage of the escape. I came up with an idea. Remove the pump from a faulty tray warmer. Then, attach a cutting wheel to its shaft. And hey, it worked real good. We cut through the gates over the next few nights. I could hardly believe it when those big old hunks of metal swung open. But when we reached the cage around the storm drain, we were in for a surprise. We thought it would be made of a soft metal, but it turned out to be hardened steel. Our homemade cutter was useless. It was like a kick in the stomach. We had to find a way through that cage before the tunnel rats stumbled across what we'd done. What we needed was something high-powered, like a sawzall. But cutting tools could only be used for specific jobs. They were checked out and monitored closely by a supervisor.
Hey, boss, can I get a sawzall to fix some of the lights?
So I pretended I needed a sawzall for a job at a cell
A lot of
house.
heavy cutting to do. Okay.
But really, I was going to smuggle it into the tunnels.
Tool control is incredibly important. You give an inmate the right tool, it doesn't matter how strong your prison is, you can get out.
I hid the sawzall in a bag with some fan parts before we headed underground to do some repairs. I was feeling real nervous because we still had to clear a checkpoint. If the guards found the sawzall, they'd ask questions. Then our supervisor would see it, and we were in trouble. The sweat was just running down my back. For a split second, I thought he was done. Then he started feeling the Sawzall bag. When he picked it up, I thought it was over.
Hey, John. You,
Then Charlie stepped in.
Huh? Wasn't that something? Third down. Was that not the most unbelievable play? You see that beautiful spiral? All right, yeah. No, John, come on. It was beautiful. No.
They didn't ask nothing. I could breathe again. When we got to the tunnel entrance, I made up an excuse to leave the crew.
Do you mind if I take these fan parts back to the cell house?
Okay.
I waited for them to disappear before making my move. I had to act fast. I needed to be back in time for the 2 p.m. count, and being down there on my own would be impossible to explain. When I got to the storm drain, I kept thinking, we're almost there. I had to work real quick. The longer it took, the more chance a tunnel rat might show up. But the steel was so hard it took 30 minutes to cut just one bar. I started to panic. It was taking forever and making a hell of a lot of noise. But I just had to risk it. I'd never get another Sawzall to the storm drain. It took 3 hours, but the job was done. We'd cut so much stuff now I knew it was just a matter of time before the guards found out.
You had to patrol all the tunnels at least once a week. We had to check for steam leaks, water leaks. Then we also had to check to make sure there wasn't no escape attempts.
The clock was ticking. It was time to bust out. We thought it would take about 6 hours to get through the storm drain. But we didn't know what we'd find down there. If there were delays, it would be crazy for all three of us to be missing from our cells.
Call the bro.
Somebody had to go first. Mark and I flipped a coin.
Heads.
Heads, man.
You want to go first?
Oh, yeah. I sure do.
The plan we discussed again and again was for Mark to call us when he got out on a smuggled-in cell phone a buddy of ours had in I cell house. Me and Charlie would then bust out the following day and meet Mark at a casino in Michigan City. He'd be waiting with a car provided by an accomplice.
What's the problem?
Everything okay, boys?
Everything's good, boss.
Hey, boss. How you doing?
Mark was ready to go after the 12 o'clock count.
Starsky and Hutch or Kojak? I mean, a lot of the guys...
Maybe it was nerves, but he seemed a little cold.
Good luck. Counting on you.
See you on the inside.
That night, just as regular, I put the dummy in the bed. I was thinking, there must be something we've overlooked. What if Mark gets stuck deep in the storm drain? Am I really gonna bust out and see my dad? I was ready to bust out, but I couldn't make my move until I knew Mark had got through the storm drain and reached freedom. All day Saturday, there was no call from Mark. I was getting nervous. Then, in the evening, Charles arrived with news.
Called. He's out, man. He's out. Just called Wolf upstairs 5 minutes ago, man. You're going home, brother. Going home.
We dropped into the tunnels just after 5 a.m. The next count was at 10 a.m. We had less than 5 hours to get as far from the prison as possible.
This way.
It was an awesome feeling, just breezing through them security gates we'd cut through. We crawled into the storm drain. It was tight, claustrophobic. Just 24 inches across. We had to drag ourselves forward. Boy, if you let yourself panic, you'd go crazy. We reached a space under a grill inside the prison grounds. Charlie was struggling.
Let's go.
He's a big guy. I wasn't sure he'd make it through the next part of the route. We learned that up ahead, the storm drain dipped, a little like a U-bend in plumbing.
You okay?
I'm good. Let's go.
It was a gas barrier, about 12 feet long and full of water. We'd have to swim through it. Once inside, there'd be no way to turn around. You made it through, or died trying. Suddenly, I was out. I couldn't believe it. I didn't wait for Charlie. I had to keep going. Time was running out. In all, it took 3 hours to reach the main storm drain under 10th Street. That thing was 20 feet wide. I think a truck could have drove in it.
Let's go.
I'd been waiting, hoping, and praying for this moment for months.
Oh, man, that's beautiful. Let's go, man. Come on, man.
Suddenly, light. A world I hadn't seen for more than 10 years. We needed to get to the casino and catch that ride with Mark real quick.
7:45. We gotta go now.
We walked into the blue chip. But there was no sign of Mark.
Listen, could you tell me if the Mark Boer left a message?
No, no messages from Mark Boer.
Nothing, huh? Okay. I'll check back later, thanks.
I tried to stay calm, but I couldn't believe what was happening.
There's no hair, man. I got a bad feeling about this.
We'd broken out, but the plan was falling apart. Mark was nowhere to be seen, and any minute now the guards would find out we were missing.
Okay, we can't stay here any longer.
I was shocked. That was the first question in my mind, is how? How could you possibly made it out of that prison? That's pretty genius on their part.
When I arrived at the prison, it was just a buzz of activity. In any manhunt, the first 12 to 24 hours are critical.
Mark Ragalan, United States Marshal.
Once you get past that time, you don't know if they've gotten into a vehicle, a train, a plane.
Got the file on these guys?
They could be anywhere. You think to yourself, my God, you've got 2 convicted murderers and a convicted rapist on the loose. You better not screw this up. Lance Betrell, this guy's a serious sex offender. He could be outside the walls of this prison right now committing sex offenses.
All right, you know the drill, boys. We need to find out who they know, friends, family.
We threw everything we had at him. There was anywhere from 50 to 75 officers on the ground attempting to apprehend the escapee.
The 3 inmates began serving time at the Indiana State Prison in the late 1990s and had at least 30 years left on their sentences. It's unclear how the 3 breached security, entered the tunnels underneath the prison, and escaped.
We were exhausted after a night hiding from the cops in them woods. I kept thinking about Mark. Had he lied?
Pills. It's heads, man.
I put the pieces together and it started to dawn on me.
First, oh yeah, I sure do.
The guy I thought was my friend had used me and Charlie to get out of prison.
See you on the other side.
Then he'd abandoned us at the casino. The more I thought about it, his betrayal became clear.
Hey, come on, gotta get going.
After about a half hour, we came to some houses.
Okay, man, let's pretend like we're jogging, all right? Okay. It's risky. We gotta try. This way. Let's go.
I could see an SUV parked on the road. Something about the guy sitting inside made me uneasy.
I think it's a cop.
I tried not to look back, but I just knew the guy was following us. I could feel his eyes in the back of my head.
Up to the left, okay?
We jogged around a corner, but it was a dead end. Suddenly, the guy screeched to a halt.
Stop, police!
Next thing, he's gonna gun us down. I just kept running. If he shot at me, that was the only way I was gonna stop. When I looked back, Charlie was getting cuffed. I figured I had about 20 minutes before more cops showed up. I took a path along the surf at the edge of the lake to throw them dogs off. I came across this little scrap of woods and found a place for me to hide. At one point, I heard voices. They were out searching for me. They were getting closer and closer. Suddenly, I saw a pair of boots. The cop was so close. All he had to do was look down, and it was all over. I held my breath. All I moved was my eyeballs. After what felt like forever, he turned and left. About then, my heart blew out of my chest.
I'm urging all residents that if they see him, call police immediately, because we believe he is still in this area.
Every day Lance Patrell was on the loose, I'm thinking to myself, this guy is a serial sex offender, and there's a chance of him finding another victim and striking again.
Two days, I hid in the woods by the shoreline. I was tired, hungry, dehydrated. My only desire was to see Dad. I decided to head for home. I only had a few bucks, but I knew I'd make it somehow. As I walked into my hometown, I was feeling pretty weird. I'd been in prison for 13 years. The place I thought I knew looked strange. I felt like everyone and everything was watching me. But I was thinking, man, I made it. I'm gonna see my dad soon. What happens afterwards don't matter. It had taken me 10 days to reach my hometown after busting out of prison to see my dad. I walked into a store I remembered from years past. A few seconds later, I couldn't believe it. there's my dad. 13 years had not made me forget what he looked like. I was just blown away. I walked over to him. I said,
Hey, haven't seen you in a long time.
He took a long look. A light came on in his mind.
Lance!
He was so happy.
How are you doing? Are you okay?
I'm good. I'm good. I got someone for you to see.
I was looking for a certain item, and Patrick called me.
Jerry, look what I found.
And I turned around, and he had this fellow with him. I didn't know who he was until he got close. And I gave him a hug, and I held him real tight, and I just wanted to take him and put him in my pocket and keep him there. I was very worried that somebody would recognize Lance. It was just like if I was in heaven. My son, what they call the prodigal son, was home.
So how have you been, Dad?
I've had some hard times, but we're getting through.
It got quiet. And he said, well, Dad, I really got to say, I'm really sorry about all the trouble I made for you and Mom. He said, you know, Dad, you're the only dad I got. And I love you so much. But I did say to him, I think you should give yourself up.
You're probably right. I just don't know what to do.
Everything in my head told me to leave home now. That's the first place U.S. Marshals go.
At 11:40 at night, I received a phone call stating that Lance Petraeus was currently at his mother's residence in Rockport, Indiana.
So why did I stay? Maybe I knew I belonged back in prison.
Would you guys go down the side? Mrs. Lynch, is he here?
I explained to her that I was going to have to come in and check her house.
He's asleep upstairs in the bedroom.
I really felt that somebody was going to shoot him. If you had a child of your own and somebody said to you, you have to give him up and you'll never see him again, how would you feel? It's like being in hell. I just didn't think I would ever get to see him again.
The next day, we got a tip that Mark Boer was staying in a hotel on the north side of Indianapolis.
Freeze! Hands behind your head. Hands
He looked
behind
extremely surprised to see that door come off the hinges.
your head. On your feet. On your feet now.
He didn't say a word the entire time. He never said one word. I had a sense of joy and relief come over me. This type of investigation could sometimes last weeks, months. This lasted 11 or 12 days, and we got all these guys back into custody.
I'm locked in my cell 23 hours a day now, but the escape was worth it. I got to see my father and tell him those things that meant everything in the world to me. He died 2 months later.